My name is Saharsh and I'm a web developer at DSC. Today I'm going to teach you all about the basics of Python. So let's get started. So before we actually learn Python, let's first understand what exactly is Python and why one might use it. So Python is a general purpose programming or scripting language. It was created by Guido van Rossum in 1991. Python can be used in many different things, such as web applications, automating tedious tasks, machine learning, data analysis, and these are just few of the things. These are just the tip of the iceberg that Python can do. Python is also it's very simple to read syntax, makes it one of the most popular languages, and that is also another reason why it is recommended to beginners. So as you can see in most languages, you would have to write like 10 lines of code just to print a hello world, but in Python it's just one simple line. So that is what Python is. So let's dive in and start learning. So we'll start with numbers. So in programming, any value or any data has a particular data type. And numbers in Python, as you might have guessed, store numeric values. Numbers in Python are immutable. That just means that if you make any change to a numeric value, a change is not actually happening to the value itself. Instead, a new object is being created in place of the older one. So there are three types of numbers in Python, namely integers, floats, and complex numbers. So let's look at each of them one by one. So the first one is integers. So integers, you can think of integers as basically whole numbers, including negative numbers, but not fractions. In Python, unlike other languages where they have a limit to how big an integer value can be, in Python, it's not like that. You can have as big of an integer value as the developer wants. Example would be 1, 30, 100, a million, anything. Next up is floats. So floats, you can think of floats as a superset of integers because floats are basically integers, but also including fractions. You can also write floats with small e or big E if you want to represent the float in scientific notation. So that is floats. The next up and the last part is complex type. So complex number are basically of the form a plus b j, where a and b are floats and j represents the square root of -1, which is the imaginary part. Complex numbers are not used much in Python, but it's there if anyone has any use for it. So I hope everyone is with me till now. If anyone has any question, feel free to ask in the chat box. So next up is variables. A very important part, not just in Python, but any programming language. So variables, you can think of variable as a label that points to a specific location in memory. So you can use variables to there's a question. What is the data type for complex numbers? It is the complex number itself is a data type. So yeah, it all comes under numbers. But if you would print the type of a complex number, it would just show complex number. So yeah, variables are, you can use variables to store data temporarily in the computer's memory. You can store like numbers, username, emails, etc. So for example, how you would use a variable is that you would give your variable a name. So in our example, I gave this variable the name club, and I assigned the value DSC to that variable, and you use the equal to operator to assign the value to the variable. So let's just try to run this simple code and let's see if this works. So we should, so the print, if you would put anything between the parentheses of that print, it would just print out the output in the console. So let's try to run this. By the time, let me see if there is any questions. Complex number examples. Complex number examples would be such, look, 3 plus 5j, or 5j or minus 5j, and j just represents square root of -1. That is just the imaginary part. Okay, so let's try to run this. Yeah, and we get DSC. So in this case, we are storing this value in the variable that we can use later on. Okay, so the next topic is Boolean. So Boolean is probably the most easiest topic that you learn today. So what Boolean is Boolean is also another data type, and this data type can only have two possible values, which is true or false. So in programming, you often need to know if a particular expression or a statement will evaluate to either true or false. So in our example here, we are looking at three different statements. So first one is 12 greater than 10? We're asking and we want to know if it is true or not. So obviously it is true and it will print true to the console. Again, another example is 8 less than 2. It would print false. And in the third example, we are just comparing two strings or two strings, and we are seeing if they are equal or not. So here both Python and Python are equal. That would also print true. So let's also try to run this. So with our expectation, it should output true, false, and true. So let's see if that's what we get. Yeah, so we get true, false, and true. So that was Boolean. Does anyone have any doubt? I hope everyone is with me. Okay, let's move on. So the next one is strings. So what are strings? So you can think of strings as an array or a list of bytes that represent Unicode characters. And what are lists, what are arrays, we'll look at that later on. But basically you can think of string as a list of Unicode characters. So in Python, unlike other languages, there is no character type. So in other languages, what character type would mean is that it would only represent one character, A, B, or any special character like @ star, anything. But in Python, there is no character type. If you would initialize a value of just one character, that would just mean that it's a string of length 1. So in Python, strings can be, you can create strings by either single quotes or double quotes. It's your preference. And you can also use triple quotes to make multi-line strings. So next up is indexing. So for anyone who is little bit familiar with programming, you would know that list has, each element in a list has an index. So that's what it is. That's sort of the same case with a string, because as I said, that strings are an array. Each letter or each character in the string has a particular index. So the first, in our example here, we are initializing a string of Google. So the first G here would be of the index 0. The next O will be index 1. Next O will be 2, and so on. So let's try to run this code. In this code, we are trying to get the letter or the character at the 4th index of our string here, and we're trying to print. So would anyone, if anyone knows the answer of this or the output of this code, just put in the chat box. The answer is already there in the code itself, but still, if anyone would like to guess. Okay, we're getting a few answers. Okay, yeah, the answer is L. That one was a bit easy, but still good job. Uh, Moving on. Um, so there is a thing called slicing in Python, and what slicing helps us with is if you would want to retrieve a part of a string, or you could say a substring from a particular string, you would use the slicing operator, which is the colon. So how it works is that you specify the name of the string or the variable in which you are stored, in which you have stored the string. In our example, we're considering our previous example where we initialized a variable a with the string Google. And how it works is that the first number here specifies the index from which we want to slice or start the or retrieve the part of the substring from. So and the second number represents where we want to end our slice, but the second number is not included, so it's exclusive. So in our example here, what we are saying is that give me the part of the string where the substring starts from the index 2 and ends at index 4, because 5 is not included. So considering the same previous example, let's try to run this code. And again, if anyone knows the answer, put it in the chat box. Yes, correct. OGL. That's right. Oh, so many people have guessed the correct answer. Okay, let's move on. Also in string, there is a few shortcuts that you can use. So for example, if you want to slice the string from the beginning, means if you want to slice the string from the 0th index itself, you can omit the first number and Python will understand that you're slicing the string from the beginning. Same case, if you want to slice the string to the end, you can omit the last number and it will slice from the first number or the first index that you have specified till the end of the string. So again, let's try to run both of these. Again, I'm expecting the answers, or we're already getting answers. Okay, let's try to run the first one where we're slicing from the beginning. Oops, 1 second. So we get GOO, and for the second one, which is print from first index to the last index. Yes, Google. We get it, that's what we get. Okay, moving on. So the next topic is list. So what are lists? So basically lists are a way to store multiple values together in one variable. Also, lists are mutable, which just means that once the list is created, you can change it later on. And also, it's not necessary that only one type of element can be in a list. A list can contain different types. So for example, in our example here, I created a list called stuff. And in that, we have different data types. We have string, we have integers, we have string again, we have floats, anything. So let's see, let's try to run this if that works. Yeah, so Python's list can accept any data type, and that's also what makes list one of the most powerful tools in Python. So let's move on. Also, as I said, in arrays, each element or in each element in a list has a particular index, or you can think of it as a serial number. So the first element would have the index 0, next one will have 1, and so on. So to access a particular element of a list, we can use the square bracket notation. So how the square bracket works is that you first write the name of the list. So in our example, it is stuff. And in the square bracket, you specify the index of the element that you want. So here I'm asking for the the element at the second index. So if I would run this code, what would be the output, you guys think? Let me know. Yes, that's correct. We would get minus 68. Okay. So the next topic is dictionary. Dictionary is also a very powerful tool in Python. So let's move on. Dictionary is also another way to store multiple data types or multiple values together in one variable. But in dictionary, you store each element in a key value pair. So what that means is that if you look at our example, we are storing stuff in key value pairs. So I have a name, and that name is a key, and its value is John Doe. Here, email is a key, and its value is john@gmail.com. So you get the point. Also, dictionaries are ordered, mutable, and do not allow duplicate values. So what does ordered mean basically? So what ordered means is that every time that you use the dictionary, after you initialize the dictionary, and every time you use it, the order would be the same exact order in the way you initialized it. And fun fact, this is only possible in Python version 3.7 onwards. Before that, dictionaries were unordered, meaning every time you use a dictionary that you created, you cannot predict the order. But since Python version 3.7, dictionaries have been ordered. Dictionaries are mutable. Okay, I'll take a question. Sorry, but how did we get minus 68? Was it because... So that is because, as I told you, that each element in the list has an index, and indexing starts not from 1 but from 0. So here in our uh, the first element is apple, so the index of apple is 0, index of 182 is 1, and minus 68 is 2. So here when I asked Python to give me the element at the second index, it gave me minus 68. So that's how we got minus 68. I hope that cleared it out. Moving on. Yeah, so dictionaries are mutable, which means you can provide any changes, you can do any changes after they are created. And also they do not allow duplicate values. Duplicate values just means that you cannot add another element in which the key is the same as it already exists. So for in our example, I cannot add another element in which the key is name or in which the key is email, because it already exists. So yeah. Also in dictionaries, you can have any data type on the key side or on the value side. So in our example, in the key side, I have strings, I have integers, I have floats. In the value side, I have strings, I have a list also, integers. So yeah, moving on. To access the element in the dictionary, it is sort of the same as how you would access elements from a list. We use the square bracket. But in list, as we saw, what we provide within the square brackets is the index of the element that we want. But as there is no index, or as there is no index of elements in our dictionary, what we provide in the square bracket is the key whose value that we want. So for example, let's look at our example here. Stuff is a bunch of elements here, and we want to print Donald Duck. We want to get the name, the value of the key. So within the square bracket, we provide the actual keys whose value that we want. So so the first line here would print Donald Duck because we are asking for a name. Let's try to run this, and you guys could tell me you guys could tell me the next, what would be the last two print statements and what would that output. And till then, I'll take a question. Why quotes are used in dictionary keys? Because as I said, the keys can be of any type, right? So in my case, the first name here is a string. In my second element, 31 is an integer. So I didn't put quotes here because quotes would mean it's a string. So that's the reason. So let's try to run this. And so would anyone like to guess what we did? What would be the output of this code? 31 and okay, let's see. Yes, we get Donald Duck, 31, and our list of cars. That's correct. So let's move on. So next topic is tuples. So what are tuples? So tuples are also another way to store multiple values together in a variable, and they are surrounded by parentheses. So when I was learning about tuples, it confused me the difference because I couldn't understand the difference between tuples and list. They look same. They are just stored in parentheses. But the key difference here is that tuples are immutable. What that means is that once your tuple is created, you cannot make any changes to the tuple, unlike list, which are mutable. To create if you would want to create a tuple with just one element, it's a bit tricky because you have to provide a trailing comma at the end. Otherwise, Python would not think that is a tuple. So I'll show you what that means. Let's try to run this code. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is that I'm creating a tuple with just one element. I'm printing the tuple, but at the third line, I'm also printing the type of the variable tup. And so basically the type function just returns the type of the variable. So if I run this, I get the value and I get the Python tells me that this tup variable is a tuple. But look what happens if I don't provide the trailing comma. And if I run this code, Python thinks it's just a normal integer. So yeah, that's how you create a tuple with one variable. You have to provide a trailing comma. So next up is sets. I hope till now everyone is with me. If there is any question, please put in the chat box. But you can use arrays instead, right? Arrays instead of what? You mean in the keys of dictionaries? Yes, you can use anything that you want. So the next step is sets. Tuples, yes. If that depends on what you would want. So if you would want a list of variables and you don't want any changes to happen in the later on in the code, you would use tuples, because tuples are immutable. That would not allow any changes. But if you want to have you want to have a dynamic list, you would use a list. So yeah, moving on, sets. So what are sets? Sets are again another way to store multiple items in a variable, and sets are unordered, immutable, unindexed, and duplicates are not allowed. So I'll explain what that means. So unordered basically means that when you initialize a set, so for example, I have initialized my set here as apple, banana, and cherry. But if I would use this my set variable later in my code, there is no guarantee that it would be in the same order as that. It could be in any other order. That's what unordered means. Next up is immutable. Immutable means, as I have told many times, means that you cannot add any changes once the set is created. And unindexed means, unlike list, how each element in a list had an index, there is no index for each element in sets. And also duplicates are not allowed in sets, just as the mathematical concept of sets where duplicates are not allowed, just like that. So as I said that there are no keys or there is no index in sets. So how do you access each element that you want from a set? So basically the short answer is that you can't. If you want to access the elements from the set, the only thing you can do is iterate or run a loop over the set. You learn about loops later on. So what basically is happening here is you are iterating through each element from on the set, and you are storing that each value from every iteration in this variable called thing. And what we are doing is that we're printing the thing, whatever we are getting in that variable. So I'll run this and it'll be easy for you to understand. So we would get apple, banana, cherry, just like that. So that's how you access the elements from a set. Moving on. So even though I said that you cannot change the sets once they are created, that is true. You cannot change the actual element, but you can add or remove elements from the set. So if you would want to add a new fruit to our set here, if you want to add kiwi to our set, you would use the dot add function of of the set. So you would first write the name of the set. In our case, it is my set, and you would say dot add, and you would then provide the value that you want to add to that set. So here we're providing kiwi. So let's see if this dot add function works. So if I run this, you can see that we have added kiwi to our set here. Similarly, if you want to remove an element from the set, you would use dot remove function, and within the parentheses, you would provide the value that you want to remove. So let's also try to run this. Yeah, so you can see here banana is removed. But what if I provided a value that does not exist? So if I provided here orange, Python would give me an error saying that, well, orange doesn't exist in the set, so why are you trying to remove it? So yeah, that's how it works. Next up is the update function. So for example, you don't want to add each element to your set one by one by using dot add kiwi, dot add apple. You want to you already have a set of fruits that you want to add to your existing set. So what you could use is the dot update function. So in our example, we had our original this set with our three fruits, and then we have another set of tropical fruits like pineapple, mango, papaya, and we want to add whatever fruits are there in this tropical to our this set, original set. So what we would use is that we would call the update function on our original set, and we would provide the set that we want to add to between the parentheses. So in our example, we are adding the tropical set fruits to our this set. So let's see. Let's try to run this code. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so you can see there is cherry, mango, pineapple, papaya. They got added to our original set. So that was it from my side. I hope everyone learned something.